Okay, welcome to this Kroxylicious community call on the 1st of July 2026. Let me just share our agenda doc. I can't remember where the share gesture is on Google. Too many video conference systems. Did they move the option for sharing? No, it's just me being an idiot. I'm sorry. Okay, so we've got agenda document. I put the link to the agenda document in the chat already. Please add yourself as an attendee to the meeting. And we'll get going with discussion points. So, Rob, it's over to you.
Okay, so should probably first talk about 022. So I think we're looking quite on track. Keith's, you pushed up changes to this Talos thing that's outstanding. So that's looking like hopefully around this Friday is still good. Yeah, I guess routing's good to go anytime behind its feature flag. It's just always going to be more is better for people implementing downstream off it. I think Sam may have this JOSDK investigation tagged as 022, but I think we can defer it, right?
Yes, because we've rolled back the Java Operator SDK. So we're back into a working state again, and we can upgrade for the next release.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so it's looking like Friday or thereabouts is still pretty accurate.
Yeah, I'm not sure if the documentation will be ready for Talos.
Mm-hmm.
I should have a PR up tomorrow, but that might be a little bit tight to get that reviewed in time. But I think we can just go ahead and release anyway, and users can always just refer to the upstream documentation.
Mm-hmm. All right. Sounds good. Okay, so then my next point was about the following release, 023.0, which we've currently got, if I look at the release schedule, planned for August 20th. So my request here is to move that up a lot sooner so that we can get the next stage of routing. So like once we have a bit more implemented in routing, we're going to have a much more complete implementation of the API. So I wanted to ask if we could release that sooner so that people who are building router implementations off that can get started quicker against released artifacts that they can really deploy against.
I certainly see no problem in doing 023 earlier.
Yeah, so the proposal there was in 2 weeks' time, so around the Thursday, July 16th.
That sounds
good. I mean, we've only got a couple of us here, so I can maybe put something out on the list that we so far are happy with it and then look for any objections. So maybe I'll put that down as an action.
Releasing often always seemed like a good thing to me anyway, so so Yeah, I don't see any reason why we shouldn't do that. Any more discussion points? Okay, let's go on with issues tagged as discussed sync. Okay, there are no issues tagged as discussed sync this time. So we didn't call out any proposals to take a look at. Let's have a look at what the list of proposals look like at the moment and see if we want to call attention to any of them. So we've got quite a lot of proposals in flight at the moment. Anybody wants to talk about at the moment? I know I've got a few of these I need to review and get some comments fed back just as soon as I've got time. Okay. Nothing discussed there. So on to issue triage or PR triage. Do we have a preference? Let's keep going with issue triage.
Sounds good.
Share this tab instead. That was the wrong one. And we were walking through from the newest, weren't we? Okay, so let's take them from the top. Routing investigates porting, partition, reassignment, RPCs. Rob, this is over to you.
I'm not seeing your screen, but I know what you're talking about. So,
I know what I've done. Sorry.
I'm also just generally not seeing any video, so I'm having some poor network on my end. But okay, there, I can see it now. It's trying to load, but I'm just having such bad network. Okay, so while implementing routing runtime, I've just did like an audit to check which RPCs have node IDs in them, because the routing runtime needs to rewrite all upstream node IDs into virtual ones. So as part of the runtime features, and I was checking which fields we'd implemented and found a few more to fix up. And one thing it pointed out was that there are some node IDs in the partition reassignment RPCs, which is like, admin functionality for moving partitions around, which we just haven't considered at all in the routing proposal so far. So it was kind of something that I've shoved off as perhaps not necessary for the produce. I guess that a lot of our use cases seem to be sort of produce consume oriented, so we can sort of figure this out in the background. I imagine we'll have to rewrite requests as well. Currently, we're only rewriting responses to try and get clients the right virtual IDs, but they can also send some node IDs in when they're doing assignment operations.
Yes.
So I think Sam said that, yes, we really have to support this stuff at some point. It's just since we haven't really investigated what it takes, but we should have a ticket to defer it.
I think that sounds reasonable. So I'm going to add the triage label onto that. Triaged. Something like that. Operator logs Kroxylicious runtime version info instead of its own.
So yeah, this is about the operator picking up the version from the Kroxy runtime jar. So it uses runtime to build configuration YAML. And when it's logging out what version the operator's at, it's using the version from inside there. So it kind of hangs together, but I think Sam's just saying that it's incorrect, that it should have its own build metadata separate from the runtime.
Surely, as the two modules are part of the same repo and are always released in lockstep, aren't they? Isn't that always going to be right anyway?
But he's saying it's misleading when debugging. Maybe he's rebuilt just the operator component with an existing runtime.
Right. Okay.
Like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't disagree with the issue. I was just trying to work out a situation where it was going to cause confusion. But I suppose in a case where you are rebuilding things, then yes, it will be confusing. Okay, happy to add the triage label onto this.
This also got picked up immediately by a totally autonomous LLM, which I closed the PR for being too autonomous. So look out for good first issues that immediately get implemented by AI, which is not covered by our AI policy.
Right, then next one. Node ID translation incomplete for fetch, share, acknowledge.
Yeah, so this is related to the other one. These are the ones which I am implementing now, which is just, missed fields that haven't been virtualized, like you can see at the top there of the issue, preferred read replica. So just making sure that we tell the client that there are, the correct replica so that it'll be able to look it up inside its metadata properly. That sort of thing. And share fetch. So this, the PR will involve integration testing, share fetch as well, just to make sure that that's functioning with routing.
Yep. Add hot reload IT, covering a single reload of many modifications in different areas.
Yeah, so this is a suggestion out of some pull requests I've got, adding more hot reload features, detecting changes to routing definitions and the new cluster definitions. So because we've got more indirection, there's all these hot reload changes that have to happen to detect which virtual clusters need reloading, each of them with their own independent integration test, checking that if I change this one little thing, that reloads happen. And so Ozzy was just suggesting that we have at least one IT where we change many aspects at once and check that it all manifests into something sensible.
Certainly sounds like a good idea to me. Hot reload cluster definition changes.
Yeah, so this was just the issue to capture that part of hot reload. So yeah, I guess we have to keep in mind that hot reload should be first class. So as these routing changes have come in, we didn't really mention hot reload in the proposal, but it should just be implicit that it should work. So I've got this issue and another one for doing router definitions, and there'll probably be more to come as more features are added to routing and we get even more complicated stuff going on, like routes that reference filters and so on.
Yes. Also makes perfect sense. All right. Next one is another refactoring, and from you again, Rob.
Yep, and this is more from a review that I'd shunted off, which is, yeah, virtual cluster model having a giant constructor and also getting kind of ugly with lots of nullable fields, which are kind of like mutually exclusive. You know, you've got some for the direct routing case where we just want to send it straight through to the upstream, and then a growing number of fields that are null for routing. So yeah, it's a bit of a remodel as well as just reducing the constructor arity.
Okay, so this isn't a good first issue, but it might be a help wanted.
I'm assigned to it, so it's no.
Oh right, okay.
Either of those. Yeah, I've got a pull request.
Oh right, okay. Sorry, I missed that.
Yeah, this turned out to be a bit more than just some nice cleanup. I think it's kind of in the way of adding more routing features because we're just accumulating more and more garbage on the cluster model.
Okay. Investigate making the rooted virtual node configurations safer for users.
Yeah, so this was just saying that if you, in the future, when people are using routing, there's going to be new, not exactly new things, but more confusing ways that things can go wrong around their gateway configuration. So if you're using port per broker, currently you have to make sure that the upstream topology is described right. You have to say that these are the node IDs in my upstream cluster. And if we find mismatches, well, there's going to be errors when we're trying to translate the metadata. With routing, it's also going to involve virtual node IDs. So if they configure their port per broker node ID ranges incorrectly, then they may see virtual node IDs that don't exist in any of their upstream clusters. So it's going to be even more of an interesting one for people trying to debug why can't I connect to my routed cluster. So yeah, this was just sort of a, could we make things nicer somehow? I had ideas like you could log at startup saying that, you know, that this is the total node ID range that you've got, and this is kind of what we would expect to find on each of your bijected clusters. I don't know, making the whole pipeline sort of aware that the node IDs has been virtualized sounds quite challenging. So it's a little bit hard to get that information into where you're actually sort of logging these ID matches.
I think logging things on startups certainly sounds like a good idea. You know, in the way we've got, like we talk about what the downstream is and what the upstream is. But yeah, having something that's bleating out the virtual node IDs and the node IDs would probably help.
Yeah, for reasonable sized clusters, we might be able to just sort of list out all of them. Like if you've got, you know, only got 10 total nodes involved, then we can say here's where we think each node ID lives. Otherwise, something summarized.
Yeah.
It's just a little tricky since they're interleaved. So one cluster gets sort of like 135 and one gets 024.
Yes.
And the other thing is, yeah, documentation, making sure that we have some kind of note about port per broker and how you're going to have to configure it in a particular way with, you know, more node ID capacity than before.
Okay.
Yeah, so this one is the latest merge stuff added multi upstream to routing, so you can have a router with multiple routes, each with different upstreams, and route different traffic to them. It's kind of contrived at the moment since we're using only static routing. It's hard because we can only send metadata to one of the upstreams. But with mock servers at the back end, we can test that specific RPCs go to different clusters. But we also found during development that the upstream TLS wasn't getting applied correctly. So each upstream may have its own TLS configuration, and we want to make sure that it's selected the correct one for each upstream, where I believe there's some bug like we're just picking the first one out of the list of upstreams or something like that.
Yes. You were talking about this yesterday, weren't you? Okay, finally one that's not from you, Rob. So this one, linked to snapshot documentation. I noticed that there was no good way for a user to navigate to the published snapshot documentation. So if you've got a user and you want to point them at a new feature that's currently just on main, we haven't really got a good way of doing that at the moment. We've got the snapshot docs are published, but it was never really an intended use case that would be used for a user to view those snapshot docs. So this is just logging that issue and expressing the wish that we had a mechanism to do that. That seems like a reasonable issue.
Yep, seems like a good thing to go with our publicly available snapshot artifacts.
Okay, I'll add a help wanted onto that. Oops, I should have had a triage as well. RPC generator test fails on Windows, output path not created.
Yeah, I'm not sure whether we've written down our Windowsy policy, right? I think people have contributed Windows things in the past, but I guess it's really up to anyone who actually uses the platforms to put up fixes.
Yeah. So okay, Sam's already expressed that, so I don't think we want to go as far as starting testing on Windows or anything like that. At the moment, we've got so many other things going on. I think that would be way down the priority list. So this is Maven build as well, isn't it? I suspect this will be the first of many places as well where the build breaks. Okay, integrate router lifestyle with hot reload.
Yep, so this is the other half of it. integrating router definitions, but also making sure that we can, what's it called? Close off router factories and recreate them at the right time. So hooking them into the virtual cluster lifecycle the same way we did with filters, effectively. The router implementation looks very similar to the filter implementation.
Okay, is this a help wanted or?
No, that's in progress.
Oh, right.
Yeah, as well. I think it's approved, just waiting on a maintainer approve. I've hit it. I think
right.
Ozzy's looked at both the hot reload ones.
Okay. Did I not buy triage onto that one? Refactor delegating decode predicate using composition. Oh, this came from a review comment from me, didn't it?
Yep. That's also one that maybe came up in priority lately as well. Yeah, I thought it was nice to have, but we've also found bugs in the decode predicate that the routing ones were just being targeted for request decode and not response decode. So I'm thinking that by having this decomposition, we might have made it a little easier to see that kind of thing. I'm not sure. So yes, I think that one would be good to get done soon.
Okay, next one. Client black pressure must reflect writability of all backend connections.
Yeah, so this was a comment raised in the static routing branch, which added multiple upstreams supported. That it's something like when a backend becomes writable, if the client is currently blocked, I guess auto read off, then we need to check if all of the backends are writable before we relieve the back pressure. So that's got a pull request and it's nearly mergeable. I think Sam approved. We were just waiting on the last nits. I think Sam was a little surprised to discover that we didn't have, but this is just a side note, was surprised that we don't support backends disconnecting. So currently we will shut down the whole connection if one of the servers of many disconnects. We don't have anything more sophisticated about trying to handle reconnects to backends.
That sounds like it needs another issue. Needs an issue in its own right.
Something good to track, because I guess that's going to be a possibility one day, especially once we have SASL initiation.
The kind of thing that happens in production is that servers get restarted, network connections go down, so we will need something more cleverness there before we're kind of production ready. But one step at a time.
I can create an issue though.
Thank you. Investigate decomposing connection state machine responsibilities.
I think this is another Sam comment. That I guess client connection and server connection state machines, they're aware of managing one half of this low level connection kind of logic, but they're getting more and more logic piled into them about, you're in a routing mode or you're in a direct mode, therefore shuffle messages to this bit of the handler chain or not. So I guess Sam's been wondering, do we need something else that is at a higher level than these connection machines that I guess is managing a Kafka client session and isn't aware of these connection details, but is more aware of the logic of routing. So maybe something that's not a state machine, but just a thing that knows how to shuffle bits around.
Right. Certainly sounds sensible. Investigate possibility of unifying routing and direct modeling. So this is the issue that Sam was talking about in another place this morning, wasn't he?
Yeah, similar. I'm not quite sure on how it matches up with his concepts of there being an identity router, but it's same kind of issue more from like, while I'm implementing this stuff, I'm thinking, well, it's strange that we implement things differently for routing and direct when they kind of, you can squint at them and say that the old case is a very simple, trivial type of routing where we're routing to a static single upstream. So maybe we should be changing the internals of the proxy to implement everything the same way. So there might be like this naive router that we install at the front or something that just passes everything through in the identity case. That's probably what Sam's talking about. But it sounds like he's wondering about whether it should be like a named concept or something like that.
Yes, whether it should be reflected, whether the whole model should be in that way rather than and do away with virtual clusters entirely. Okay. So there's plenty to chew on there. Investigate connection metrics once labeling is introduced.
Yeah. And again, this is just, deferring some comment from the static routing PRs that in the proposal, it sort of briefly names a few metrics that we might want to have and with route as a label and things like that, but it's not super well defined. So this was probably an investigation that should have a more complete mini design go up saying, here's what we want for our routing metrics.
Yeah.
Like, does it make sense for them to have a route label? Because there's a DAG of routes. You can come through different paths to get to a particular thing. It's complicated.
Yes. I think once we've got a working router implementation, it'll then be easier to work out where it makes sense to measure metrics and what sort of thing you actually need to understand its behavior. Okay, next one, CV updates for 0.21. So as we discussed upstream, we want a re-release of the 0.20 branch. So this was just cataloging all of the CV updates we want to apply to that branch. So I'll stick a triage label on this. So yeah, boils down to mainly netty Jackson, Micrometer, Log4j, Vertex, and I think there was an Azure class as well. I guess we'll have to reanalyze CVEs again because a week's gone by since that's done, and CVEs are coming thick and fast at the moment, aren't they? Yeah, release one. Okay, static routes, API scoping, default forwarding, and div experience gaps.
Yeah, this is just capturing extensive comments from Rishab on one of the pull requests, which is basically that the static routes API on the router, he's finding it too limited. So he's put up a design for this. I'm not sure whether we should keep the issue open now that we have a design proposal. I guess wait until the design proposal is handled. But it would be good to get decided because I guess it's quite a fundamental change having the routers default to pass through to the upstream implied by their virtual node instead of the router explicitly having to decide on every request. And while we're behind a feature flag, I guess we've got opportunity to change.
Okay. Okay, the next one, support advanced load balancer service options for Kafka ingress, Kafka proxy ingress for on-premise deployments. So this user was requesting the ability to influence two other fields that go on the load balancer service Kubernetes resource. I took a look at this and did some write-up, and it certainly seems to me like having these two fields reflected on the Kafka proxy ingress would make a lot of sense. I looked around at another couple of things where APIs had abstracted above load balance, and they'd done something similar. Strimzy was one that I can remember right now. So I think this feature does look reasonable and is something that we should do. So I'm going to add the triage label, and I think this would be a good candidate for help wanted as well. Be a relatively straightforward thing to do. It's just opening up fields and passing the values down to the service object. It will need a proposal. So I think the design proposal might end up looking like adding these two fields to the Kafka proxy ingress doc.
I think we might be, this is like a 40 or a 45, I think.
Yeah, I think we're at time. Okay, let's close the call there. Thanks everyone for coming along, and we'll see you all next time. Cheers.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Yeah.